Okay, I will call the meeting back to order and to reconvene in open session. Welcome everyone to the Amery School District Board meeting. We will start out with the spotlight on education, which is the peer mediation from the intermediate and middle school students and counselors.
She was going to run that, I think.
Why don't you come in and introduce yourselves initially, and then who's here?
Okay, I'm the school counselor here at the intermediate school. I'm Charlie Narchek, and we'll have these guys introduced. We have two students from the intermediate school. You guys tell us your names.
I'm Sammy Fulton. I'm Brooke Benson.
And we have three students from the middle school here, correct?
One on the way.
One on the way. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Grace Carlson. I'm Sophia Danielson. I'm Desiree Wisher.
Okay, thanks for coming, guys. So we are talking about peer mediation today. So we're going to start with Brooke and Sam. You're going to present the first slide, telling us what peer mediation is. So
What about the microphone then, girls?
I have
The microphone?
Oh, the microphone.
One slide has a lot of clicks.
So, peer mediation is a program to talk from student to student and to help students with friendship problems. So, peer mediation is problem solving by youth with youth. It is a process by which two or more students involved in a dispute meet in a private, safe, and confidential setting to work out problems with the assistance of trained student mediators.
Why peer mediation? Empowers students to learn to resolve disputes by themselves, reduce staff time spent on discipline, reduce fights, detention, and suspensions.
Expectations for peer mediators. Remain neutral.
Treat all people and problems with respect.
Listen to both sides.
Keep discussions confidential.
Help students reach a solution.
Maintain control of the meeting.
Encourage others to use peer mediation.
Identify feelings other than anger.
Be patient.
Find positive solutions to problems.
Peer mediation at Amery Intermediate. Requested by students or staff. Coordinated by school counselor Mr. Minarchek. Common issues include name calling, playground arguments, talking behind back and teasing, and friendship.
Awesome. Mediators, I don't have it memorized. Understanding regular adult adolescent issues.
There you go.
And Samurai is requested by students and staff. It's coordinated by our school counselor, Mrs. Weisenbeck. And it can occur with or without staff presence. All the participants agree to mediate. Common referrals are for horseplay gone too far, rumors and gossip and teasing, and mean or rude behavior. Mediators are selected by student and staff nominations as well as individual interest. Looking ahead to the future, we want to increase the number of students served, different classroom presentations, promotional materials, social media, etc. And we also want to expand to a peer helper and counseling program for promoting resiliency and mental health awareness. And Grace and Maya and Desiree can talk more about that.
We've noticed it's been a very big problem in our school as far as mental health goes, and just feeling comfortable in the school and with our peers. And we think it's important that students have a way to express any concerns or feelings they have about anything that's going on in their lives to someone who will just listen to them and just try to help them and focus on helping them, just as a way to express their emotions to someone else instead of bottling it up inside.
This would be a little different than a mediation because we wouldn't be trying to help them work through anything necessarily. They'd just be sort of
Providing promotional support.
Yeah,
Mostly just listening to what they have to say.
and checking in with them occasionally. See how they're doing. We made a video. It's called The Do's and Don'ts of Peer Mediation. This is more of a humorous thing. So this is what not to do. Also, a disclaimer, this is Nico and Ethan. They weren't here tonight, but they are actually good mediators. They are not terrible mediators, as this implies. So. Great!
She's also kind of Desiree. She's still my friend. This is one effect of being peer-to-peer mediation. But unfortunately, the mediators they were assigned to did not exactly know how to mediate properly. Oh, here we go. You just put that down. But I think about that rule. Basically, we're going to go over that I think benefit Desiree is my best friend. Are professional. They always explain the rules, and they are always impartial. Hi, I'm Maya, and this is Sophia. Welcome to Peer Mediation. So, Grace, what would you do with us? What? Yeah, you were always doing something there. Yeah, we always do. These sides should be extremely respectful. I know what happened first. You couldn't tell me about that other time. So, I was just... Do you think that story about the force moving thing is real? This isn't like the most cliche thing I've ever heard. Never insult people you meet. You guys be more specific. You can do this for a YouTube channel. Patients are always confidential. Oh, I even learned to just stop being ignored and use this alone. You're not a judge or a jury. And no bribery. You guys are really figuring this out. Thanks for coming. If you follow these guidelines, you'll be an excellent mediator, help people solve their problems. And if you have much Nico and Ethan, then, well, so pretty fantastic samurai. You get that audio? Yeah, we should get 50 cases. So I get all the videos. With Nico and Ethan. Okay, so obviously that's what not to do if you guys were mediators. All right, so we're gonna do a demonstration, which I think Sammy and our intermediate mediators know more about that. So. Yeah, these two have a problem.
My name is Sammy, and I'm going to be one of your peer mediators.
My name is Brooke, and I'm going to be your other peer.
So first, we're just going to go over the rules. We're going to wait our turn to talk, and everything that we say is going to stay just between us. So what's your side of the story?
Desiree was being really mean to all my friends, and I just don't like her.
What's your side of the story?
Grace has been saying stuff behind my back, and so I've just been trying to become closer to her friends, and so she just keeps on saying stuff.
So, why are you saying stuff behind your back?
Because she's trying to take my friends.
So, are you really trying to take her friends?
No, I just don't have very many friends.
Okay. So, do you think that you could maybe just ask her next time? If there's anything going on?
Yeah.
So, do you guys agree on the solution?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions about peer mediation? Covered.
Can you share how much and how they're trained?
The intermediate students spent a whole day at CES 11 being trained by Mike McGowan. and they modeled this exact scenario, and they practiced coming up with their own mock problems, and they did it with other students from other CISAs as well. So they spent a whole day getting trained, and so far they've done about 15 peer mediations formally with the request, and they're also on the playground. They can step in and also kind of step in as well. So yeah.
Do you want to share about middle school training?
Yeah, our students also see Mike McGowan. We kind of rotate every other year. So one year we'll take them to the Mike McGowan training at CISA 11, and then the opposite year we'll do some in-house training on campus.
I can say that there are, as an administrator, and I think Or can speak to this as well, there are certainly things that we don't put in front of the kids because it's a little rougher of a situation, a little more in depth of a situation, and there's quite a few of those that we would never put in their plate. But there are a lot of things that typically that we could sit and drill down into and do it again and again and again that actually are better solved by the peer mediators because the kids sit down in front of their peers. They feel a little, maybe it's a little less punitive and it's a little bit more of time for they can speak freely that they maybe wouldn't when I'm talking to them or when we're and so I've been really pleased with some of the problems that have been solved that I could have maybe it would have taken 3 sessions that get done immediately. But then again, we want to make sure that there's a lot of confidential things and problems that we would never put there that we obviously, but there are certainly a lot of great things that our peer mediators do a really nice job. So I want to thank you too.
That is actually part of their training is if they ever feel that they're in a situation that they can't handle or that they think that they need more support, they would go to Mr. Minarchek or myself.
How's the experience been, girls?
It's been
Really
good,
great.
actually. Yeah.
Do you find that it helps you to help other people solve problems? Does it help you with your own problem solving?
Yeah, it helps me see other people's problems more so that I can help without even having to be asked.
Make you more sensitive and aware of what's going on? And
Yeah.
About how many have you done or how often?
Me and Sophia did one right before we did
Like the training.
right before we did the training. We've had a couple this year.
Yeah. We did not quite as many
Yeah.
this year.
And I think the whole reason why we want to expand on it and bring in more mental health, I think more kids would try to bring it up to us then and be more open to it because I don't know if kids won't exactly bring up their friend issues because they might think that they're being over dramatic with it or something like that.
We just wanted to give kids an opportunity to use this resource.
How many teams do you have at the intermediate school?
We have 8 members, so 14.
And how about at the middle school?
6. Yeah.
So 4 individuals.
And have some of you done it multiple years now?
Yes.
Yes, I did it in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Last year.
We only have 5th grade, so.
I think I probably referred about 10 to 15 last year. I haven't referred as many this year. Maybe because the kids are acting so much better.
Well, it's a great experience.
Good job, girls. Thanks for doing that. It's important for your friends in your school. Good job.
Thank you.
We'll start with the consent agenda items. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the vouchers are approved. Is there anyone signed up for community comments?
No.
Administrative reports.
I can start with the high school. It's a big week of assessment. We have the NAEP, the National Association of Educational Progress. That's the federal endeavor. They come and do the test for you, in essence. We have that going on tomorrow. Then that's for seniors. Then we have the ACT on Wednesday. Then the ACT work keys, also for juniors. The ACT and the work keys are for juniors on Thursday. Parent-teacher conferences tonight and conferences on Thursday. If you haven't signed up, you still can. Winter sports update. We had 4 wrestlers this past weekend qualify from sectional to state competition in Madison. And hopefully I don't forget anyone as I'm saying it. We've got Walker Ingham. We've got Mike Smith. We've got, I'm going to forget them, aren't I? Hopke, Cale Hopke, and Mason Tiley. I would have had it eventually. Those 4. 2 sectional champions, so hopefully we can bring home a state championship. So we'll know more next week. And lastly, if the first 3 items on testing weren't enough, we actually are doing sign-up for AP testing right now, and that occurs the first week of May. So a lot of testing happening at the high school. So, Tom?
Sure. I just want to mention a couple, again, of some of the gifted and talented or enrichment activities going on at the middle school. I had 10 students attend the Science Olympiad this last weekend. I think it's our first year that we've done it. Very excited to see the applied science and all the great learning that the students practiced and prepared for ahead of time and then showcased their skills at the Science Olympiad. I want to thank Daniel McCall and Ariel Humpel, who wrote a mini grant to kind of fund this new endeavor. And as we move forward, it's something that I know that they really would like to do, and so I'm going to try to work with them to try to secure additional funds to maintain that program. We have Battle of the Books that are happening. I think you have Battle Books district-wide. Thursday we have a big competition. And if you don't know what Battle of the Books is, it's like teams of students are assigned a whole series of books, and you have to kind of work together. So you can't read them all; it would just be way too many. So you split out who's going to read which book, and you plan on prepare it. And then there's questions that come at you off the books, and you have to answer them as a team. And I want to thank Greta McCarty for working with that program. We have DI coming up in March, and as you know, Destination Imagination is an outstanding program. It's kind of similar to the Science Olympiad, but we have multiple teams attending that competition. Alan Carlson and Shane Curtis are in their first year as the director for DI, so that will be great for them. Quiz Bowl is happening at the middle school. That's a 6th grade GT program. And I have multiple teams competing all over the place, and we just kicked off Genius Hour. We're probably about 3 or 4 weeks into it, and the students are starting to get their driving research questions solidified so that they can really kick in and do this active research and then put forth some of their project-based learning program and work for our ultimate end-of-the-year showcase. So those are some really great things. We have some assessments coming up at the middle school. We weren't a NAEP school this year. By the way, the NAEP is your sort of luck of the draw if you get it. I've been a NAEP school in the past. This year was the high school and the intermediate.
I take issue with the word luck.
Yeah. And especially when snow days cancel NAEP, so then the NAEP test is the day before the ACT. Yes. Really nice. But we do have the youth risk behavior survey that we're doing next week for 7th and 8th grade, and we talked about that last month, but that's really measuring student behaviors and at-risk factors and also positive effects and different things that could happen, and we can use the data to get grants. We also on Thursday have a teen mental health workshop, and I want to thank Julie Montgomery-Reese, who's running that at 6 o'clock this Thursday. We have a teen mental health parent workshop at the middle school, and the same during the evening of conferences, so that will be great. And then tomorrow, we have a district-wide team that's going to go down to Somerset Middle School, and we're going to be visiting a program called Fast Bridge. And, depending on what we see, you might hear and find out a little bit more of Fast Bridge. And to kind of give you just a little 1-minute look at it, right now we do a lot of assessments, and we do a lot of screeners. And screeners are like the quick, easy, 10 to 15-minute screener a kid can take. And we're able to drill down and say, okay, we don't have to worry about these kids that did really well in the screener. They know their math facts, or they can read at grade level, but these are the kids we need to really take a look at. And we right now are using multiple different types of screeners, but we have a STAR Math at the middle school. We also have a STAR Reading. We pay for both of them, separate costs. Then if we decide that a kid really needs intervention, then we buy a program called Ames Web, and the Ames Web is a progress monitoring tool that monitors how well they do each week on their progress monitoring. What we're looking at FastBridge is all-encompassing one program that does what all 3 of those do, plus a behavioral monitoring system that we can all for about the same cost as one of the 3 that we talked about before. So not only if it's good, maybe we're going to be taking a look at a new program that could replace 3 of them, but it would also be a cost savings to the district if and in fact it does what we want it to. But we decided not to bring the sales rep in because you can get burnt by that because they come in and bell and whistle you, and then you realize it didn't really do it. We're going to go actually to a school that's using it, been using it, and we're going to hear from them, see it with kids, try it ourselves, and we think we're going to get a much better indicator of what we feel. So we'll see tomorrow.
All right, we are in the middle of our Power Up Winter Challenge. Melissa Hansen, our Phi Ed teacher, is heading that up. And it's a 3-week challenge where we try to get kids to try different fruits and vegetables. And they're supposed to track their fruits and vegetables. And then new this year, we're also tracking movement and trying to get them to understand that good health and movement all go together. And so we win at the end, of course, other than good health, you win power-up bucks that we use to purchase recess playground equipment or other Phi Ed equipment things so that the kids can continue to use them. Today, we had an in-service this morning at the intermediate school from 8 o'clock until noon, and we were busy all 4 hours. We had a great speaker, Teresa Stanley from CISA 11, and she talked all about our reading block and guided reading and meeting the needs of our diverse learners. And then right now is the book fair, which is always a favorite with our kids and parents. So it started today and will go through the 21st. So if you haven't had a chance to get to the book fair, you still have time. Thank you.
Okay, registration process for the 2019-2020 year, believe it or not, is underway. On Thursday of this week, information will be going home in family folders for families to register for, to pick what options they would like for their children. At the elementary school, of course, we have the Children's House Montessori, which is a 4KK multi-age program. We have lower elementary Montessori, which is a grade 1 through 3 multi-age program. We have our project-based learning environment, which is for grade 1. And then we have our legacy programs for 4K through grade 2. We also this year will be doing hosting families that want to come in and observe the programs. There are 3 dates that will be available for families. They can come in. There's a process, but basically they can observe in the classroom and then meet with me after the observation period and get their questions answered. So we're excited about that. Today, I would like to thank Ms. Radel and Mrs. Benson for planning and presenting a beautiful in-service for our teachers. It was a trauma-sensitive schools in-service, which basically focuses on social-emotional learning of our students. And they did a very, very good job of just reminding our teachers and teaching our teachers about the importance of these practices for all kids, not just kids that experience trauma. And the day ended. When you teach in a trauma-informed school, or when you're a teacher, you have a big job. And you have to take care of yourself, and that was one of the messages that we have heard through this process. So at the very end process, we had Alyssa Montana, who is the new owner of the Great Blue Yoga. She came in and all of the teachers were in our gym and experienced some breathing techniques and just some self-care for them. And it was very good and very well received. And then just a reminder that a week from Friday, on Friday, March 1st, from 5 to 7, we have our annual school carnival. And it is very much supported by our Power Up partners. They do amazing things for our district. And again, the premise, as Ms. Schock referred to, is to teach our children the importance of eating healthy. So most of the food offered for the carnival is healthy food, but we do still sneak in our cotton candy. So that is next Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. Thank you.
I will just add that also with the second grade students, the AIM information will be going home in the family folders along with all of Cheryl's other options, but the AIM will go home with second graders.
All right, in the pupil services world, I've got a quick student enrollment update. Since the September board report, eligible pupil count in Spec Ed has increased by 25. There were 6 active SPED referrals now since writing this last week. I think we've got 3 more consent, so bump that to 9. So we're looking at a potential increase of around, depending on how some of those evaluations come out, could be around 30 to 35 students from the beginning of this year. So certainly always busy in that referral and eligibility land. And then just quickly, just want to highlight the training. You've heard a few different references tonight about the work that our CISA does in terms of exposing students to training, staff to training, the consultants they bring. You heard Mr. Benson just talk about ACEs. They've got trauma-sensitive schools trainings that they present. We also have, in addition to CISA, some of the things through PDHs and PDUs that we're doing in-house as a district. So I think it's just important to acknowledge both what we're doing. I also want to acknowledge the importance that we're a consortium member of CISA and the work that we're able to do with them and the service they're able to provide to us, because it is difficult in a district to do everything yourself. So in light of that, just a few of the highlights of trainings that have CISA over the last month or two. Fundamental of sentence writing strategies. We had teachers attend that. Using technology to transform instruction and increase teacher productivity, lesson planning in the classroom, and also sensory and self-regulation training targeted towards students with difficulties in the classroom, and self-advocacy and some inclusive practices trainings. So just wanted to highlight that and thought it was interesting that, just in the course of this last 10 minutes, we've heard CISA a couple times. So thanks for your continued support of our membership in that consortium.
Brad, I got a question for you. When you're talking about the count going up, is that across all grade levels? Or do you have a, that's for all grade levels?
Correct, district-wide.
And do you have a total then, how many that would bring a total for special ed student count? Do we have a total on that?
I do, I want to say it's 220. I'd hesitate to say the exact number, but we're between 220 and 235. We got to subtract a few of the students on 504s from that.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just thought maybe you had it there, as long as you had numbers.
Yeah, I can pull it up and give it to you tomorrow.
That's okay. Yeah, I'll email you and I'll ask you some breakdowns, and if you could get that for me, that would be helpful.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Next is the Student Engagement Strategic Plan update.
All right.
Brad, the student microphone's going to be too low for you.
All right, I just want to briefly share with you the strategic plan. Of course, we've got 5 components to it, and here we are to visit number 4 tonight, student engagement. So just as a refresher, our goal here, the School District of Amery will improve the learning environment for all students in order to increase student engagement, both social, emotionally, and academically. So why and what does engagement shows us that engaged students are likely to perform well on standardized tests. They're less likely to drop out of school, and that conditions that lead to increased student engagement contribute to safe, positive, and creative climates and cultures in schools. So definitely a lot of evidence to support what we're doing here. So the action plan, briefly. And I wanted to highlight a couple of, or three of the objectives, and then sort of where we've been with this plan and where we're going next. One is to increase student engagement, of course, reduce student at-risk factors. What are at-risk factors? They're things like academic failure, school and community behavior problems, social isolation, physical or mental issues, absenteeism, certainly, among many others, some of which we have control over more than others, some of which we're able to influence, and others that are more or less in control of other factors. So measurable objective number 3, of course, to increase student achievement and academic growth. So quickly, a couple of things that we've done here over the last few years. High school and middle school have selected and administered the youth risk behavior surveys. There are also other welcome surveys operating within the middle school. Check-in, check-out has been implemented at middle school and high school. It's also implemented at the elementary school and intermediate. So we're really going district-wide with this evidence-based intervention that connects a trusted, caring adult to a student who might be struggling socially, emotionally, or academically. And then finally, there's ongoing implementation and evaluation of Tier 1, Tier 2, and 3 interventions district-wide. This is happening in our pupil services weekly meetings. It's also happening at a district level with our professional learning community and our vertical pupil services meetings. So objective number 2, reduce those at-risk factors. First thing you have to do is define them, and each building has defined through their pupil services weekly team meeting factors like attendance, like student connectedness. They've also developed interventions and implemented them, and then they come back weekly and track those interventions over time to see whether or not they've been successful. Increasing academic growth. Baseline data has been developed to inform title services, those reading and math interventions. And then finally, increase staff development and training, progress monitoring, intervention planning. All these things you hear on a pretty regular basis in terms of, we just heard it a moment ago on Ames Web Plus progress monitoring, on conversations about teachers to plan intervention for students. All right, so with a little bit of a review of where we've been, I think we've got the action plan itself here. I'm just going to quickly go through it, highlighting a few of the new things. So improving the learning environment for all students in order to increase engagement. We've got integrating the use of student engagement surveys. So this is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. You've heard that it's implemented in the middle schools and high schools. And then explore, evaluate, and implement opportunities to strengthen relationships between students and staff. And making sure students are connected to at least one adult in the district, both at the middle school and high school. Check-in, check-out is an evidence-based strategy to do that. We monitor that through student engagement surveys, welcome surveys. The student success coordinators have also been instrumental in putting some of these interventions into place and informing PBIS, which is our next spot on the column here. That continues on. We're looking to continue to push positive behavior intervention and supports in all schools. And then finally, developing ongoing and sustained professional development. Again, we've just heard trauma-sensitive schools, ACEs. We want to combat disengagement and implement educational strategies that engage students at their levels. Here's the methods that we're doing that and that we can see the evidence for. And finally, this is a new one added to the list this year, and that is really extending this training to the support staff. That includes, those individuals in student nutrition that see our kids every single day. our bus drivers that are the first and sometimes the last people that might see our students throughout the day. So increasing their knowledge and working with at-risk students. Next, improving the learning environment here. So developing data systems that include the time of year, review the data, and at least 3 effective interventions. Again, our pupil services meetings weekly are engaging in a lot of this activity. They're also looking to see which interventions have been effective. If they're not being effective, they're not going to continue to implement check-in, check-out if it's not making a difference for that individual student. They're going to move on to another intervention. Identify and implement strategies and interventions to increase student attendance and address chronic absenteeism. This one is a new addition. There are some good leadership happening at our high school in particular on evaluating our student data for attendance, definitions of chronic absenteeism at the national level, and evidence-based research practices that we could be implementing to really address those students that aren't getting here. They're not making it, and they're not going to make it academically if they're not here physically to participate in school. So we're excited to add this to another way to engage with kids. And then finally, academic achievement and closing gaps. That's our action plan 3 of 3 goal. Develop an improved system to support teachers in student-centered implementation of CORE. So that's co-teaching, supported teaching. One of the things that research indicates is that increased exposure to high expectations, general education, and high learning standards leads to increased student achievement no matter who you are. So that's one of the reasons why we're really looking at doing our best to keep students exposed to that general ed curriculum as much as possible. Will there always be students that may need modified learning standards? Yes. But if we're going to close the gap, one of the keys is to keep kids accessing content that has high expectations and are as close to the learning standards for all students as possible.
Brad, I got a question about that. So, is there even in our special ed curriculum, aren't those things implemented anyway for the kids? I mean, our core stuff that's implemented anyway, right? I mean, whether they're in an actual classroom setting, in a regular ed classroom setting, or not, correct or no?
It could be, sure. There are. Here going on in the district, a special ed teacher and a general ed teacher providing instruction right there to a whole group of students that have a variety of needs. And that can be very effective.
Can I just one thing on that? I know at the middle school, we were concerned with the number of kids coming out for a pullout. And that were on an IEP that were pulled out. So we did a lot of research on the students, and we found that very few of them, if they were pulled out, were making proficiency. Now, there could be a lot of reasons why they were being pulled out for a reason, right? But our goal then was is to take that pull-out class and have the teacher go into a regular ed room with kids and then offer that support and get the full core instruction, the co-teaching method, and getting and just naturally there, when you have a teacher that's a math-only teacher that specializes in that's going to teach that, we're hoping that by increasing that standard and that expectation with the support, that we're going to see better results. And so that was a really big focus at the middle schools, one of the ways that we're tackling our growth concern. And we'll see how that goes here in another month. But
And how's it working with the regular ed class, the regular ed kids in that classroom as far as, do we find that they're being slowed down? Do we find that?
no, I don't think so, because basically the teacher is moving and giving the instruction, and then when he would normally be working and reviewing with students, I have that co-teacher that now is coming down and explaining it and working with the accommodations that might be needed for the kids that are brought in.
Okay, so it's kind of a win for the teacher then in the classroom too,
Yeah.
that they're not being bogged down by a couple of kids versus then
Right.
more kids that need extra help. So.
Right.
Okay, great.
And those are spread around so that it's not, there we have, I have them in English and math at all grade levels, so there's multiple groups going on, so it's not all these kids that are clumped and follow each other all at the same time.
And we have enough staff to accommodate that?
Well, right now we have all of those rooms being served, but then when kids are coming out and having to be worked in, there are still some students that come on. Or let's say a kid has a issue that is in the classroom but then has a problem and needs a break. We're always trying to effectively and creatively find ways to cover all the different things, because they maybe need to come up for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm. So extra staffing would
Yeah,
help?
but well, that's always going to help. But yeah, but
Yes.
but just in addition to, is like, sometimes that teacher has to leave the room to go deal with an issue that came up, and then try to get back as quick as they can. But they do a great job with that. So.
Okay. I'm thinking of those teachers too, with the stress put on them as far as trying to deal with those issues and then getting back into those classrooms, and that's a lot to ask of our staff.
Yes.
And it especially in that capacity. That's tough. It's a
Yep.
tough job. It's a tough job.
No, absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
this dovetails directly into the next point in the column here. In order to continuously improve, when you're looking at systematic intervention, you've got to evaluate building schedules, staff assignments, determine effectiveness. Are we able to do everything all the time? No. That's why we're continuing to look at, what are some new ways that we might be able to reorganize to deliver effective interventions. How do we get input from staff on what's most effective and make recommendations for improvement? And then finally, this is all about data, and is that data telling us that we're moving in the direction that we want to move? And in order to guide that conversation, we need to have systems where it creates an ease of sharing data, and have practices where it's okay to share whatever data comes out to my staff in our building, district-wide, to all of us. We're all in this soup together. And so to that end, aligning goals, aligning data systems, and we just heard about FastBridge and some of the benefits that might provide, and we'll be looking into that. But how do you inform good communication? And sometimes having a common assessment system helps that. And I don't know, we'll see. So it's a lot, but it's exciting and it's a challenge. And a lot of the work that our pupil services teams have done in terms of informing the strategic action plan. All my fellow administrators, teachers, this is a lot of work, but this is the work that we do.
So in this check-in, check-out program, how many staff or how many students does each staff handle? And there probably it varies. And is it just the certified teaching staff, or is it?
No, we have. I'm just going to say probably 10 kids currently on check-in and check-out, and we have a custodian. We have Becky. We have one of the cooks in the kitchen, and then we have certified staff as well that are the mentors.
It's very difficult for a staff member to have more than 2 children, though, because those kids report to them in the morning when they're trying to greet their classroom, and they report to them right at the end of the day. So, but it is an amazing intervention.
And a testament to that, when you say, you know, who we have being mentors to these kids and checking them in and out, that is a testament to this district of how important all of our staff is here, not just our certified staff and everybody else. I mean, right from our bus drivers to our janitors to our food service people, it takes them all to make this school work, and thank you all for doing that.
And it works
Above
for
and
big
beyond.
kids too. I know middle school and high school does it as well.
Yeah.
Even those kids need to feel a sense of belongingness.
Yes.
Yeah, we do. We use that. Like, even when I was talking about Genius Hour, I have Joanne Erickson, who's outstanding employee.
Very
Where
much.
she has a group. Andrea Gresser, my new secretary at the meeting, she has a group, and they love it because it gives them an opportunity to break for an hour, because every kid is in these groups, to break for an hour and do something totally different with the kids and interrelate with them in a totally different way. And I think they get just as much out of it as they're giving the kids too.
For sure. I know these two women, and I know many of the staff, and they wouldn't be here if they didn't really just enjoy being around kids and having that extra opportunity to interact with them in a different way. And it's a real testament to our school district, and that just needs to be recognized by all of us, and a big thank you to all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the informational items, starting with the legislative update.
Okay, well, we're heading into uncharted territories with a Republican-held state Senate and Assembly and a Democrat in the governor's seat. We haven't had that in over 10 years. On the 28th, Governor Evers is going to give a speech about his Biennium Budget, which would cover the years of 2019 through 2021. A couple of highlights of that budget, and again, this is a speech and but a proposal. This is not final enacted legislation. That's not really the way it works. An increase of $596 million in the state generalized aid over the course of the next 2 years, $190 million in the next year, and $406 in the year after. The goal is to achieve a two-thirds funding model. We have talked about two-thirds funding in the state of Wisconsin for as long as I've been in the state of Wisconsin, which is all my life, and it hasn't occurred yet. What would this do for the District of Amery? These are albeit projections. It would be an 8.7% increase in our state aid, which would be about $984,000 over the next 2 years. Now, again, this is a proposal, and we'll see what it looks like at the end of the day. Increased money for special ed costs, and one thing that both sides of the aisle are hearing loud and clear is increased money for mental health programs, because that is absolutely, it's an onslaught of that throughout the state. So that's what's happening with the governor. A couple of other items. After the speech is done and the proposal is made, it goes off to the Joint Finance Committee for public hearings throughout the state. There will be superintendents from this area that will have a chance to represent. Those hearings aren't scheduled yet, but typically they occur in about as far to the west as they get is Eau Claire. So Eau Claire is where we'll go, I guess. School cancellations. Many have said to me, why can't the governor here in Wisconsin just do it? The governor in Minnesota doesn't, just declare an edict that we've had bad weather and you don't have to make up the days. The governor in the state of Wisconsin does not have the authority to do that. EPI has stated to do that, so I think we struck out. So we're going to have to look at what our last day of school is, and we will be doing that here soon. And lastly, this is very good news for the school district of Amery. The proposal by Governor Evers is going to be so that he is proposing an increase in incentive grant money of $3.5 million in each of the next 2 years. And remember that incentive grant money is something that we use extensively in this district. And the reason for the increase is twofold. One, a lot of schools are getting in the mix. We have already been doing this for 4 years. We've gathered about $150,000 over the course of the last 4 years with the hard work of our kids and our staff. In addition to that, they're looking at actually funding these certifications in the way that they were intended to be funded at the beginning, which is $1,000 per kid. Right now, it's about $550 to $650, depending on the kid and in the action that they've taken. So if we were fully funded, we would probably increase our our take home in regards to incentive grant money significantly. But a lot of folks are jumping on board, and a lot of folks are coming and asking us, how are you doing it? Well, the answer is a lot of hard work by our kids. So that's the legislative update. We'll know a lot more as we move along into this governor's term as governor. It's too early in the game to know. Any questions for me?
Well, and a lot of that incentive grant, those incentive grants are also having to be written by staff, correct? The grant applications?
Well, the incentive grant is for every certification or every single time you have a youth apprenticeship, for instance, a student that completes that program and that work, you receive for that student X number of dollars. And again, about $600 per kid is what we have received. There are also certifications that exist in areas that we haven't tapped yet. We have a lot of business ed because most of them are in business ed. There are certifications that are connected to our house building project, and if we have students that are eligible there, which we certainly do, and they're certainly doing the work, we would go ahead and apply for that as well. We had more youth apprentices in our junior and senior class in last graduating class, if you took those 2 years, than the entire Milwaukee public school system. So that's saying something. We have more incentive grant. We have more youth apprentices than all of the CISA combined in the last year. So we're using this program a lot. But it is a lot of work. The paperwork involved is enormous. But it's well worth it because these are good opportunities for kids. Any other questions?
Okay, next we
Thank
have the middle school grading adjustment. Mr. Benson?
Okay. I think it was probably 2 board meetings ago, I just had mentioned that at the middle school we're really heavily involved in taking a look at a movement towards a standards-based report card. And I believe at the meeting, I think it was Shar, or someone had asked, and I told him that we're preparing parent meetings, and he said, well, will you do one for the board? And I said, sure. What happened, it kind of came down, is that I did one just about an hour ago, and I'm doing one again on Thursday, but I thought, well, if I'm giving it to the parents, and the parents may have questions about it, or may talk to the board about it, I thought I'd better bring it here tonight. So when I prepared this presentation for my staff and for parents, it became really evident to me that I can't start talking about standards-based report card without touching on what the PLC process is. So, and what I want to also clarify is that a lot of the stuff that I'm going to tell you may have seen before, but these are not things happening just at the middle school. These are, when we start talking about the PLC and some of those things, that's a pre-K-12 effort where we have all of the different teachers and staff working on this initiative. Comprehensive district-wide initiatives I've ever seen in my 20 years here in Amery. So right now we're taking a look at middle schools grading for learning. And I went to the Plc Conference last week, and that's the principals convention. And right now they're terming standards-based grading as grading for learning because they felt that it made more sense, because a lot of times parents are like, what does that mean? And basically what it is that you are grading that child specifically on what you want them to learn. And we all know, and just to kind of preface this, is that oftentimes, especially with middle school kids, who sometimes I get kids that are irresponsible, unorganized, they're in class, they're learning really great things, but that responsibility factor of turning everything in on time, losing things, not paying attention, sometimes the behaviors totally changed the grade and had nothing to do with what the child really learned. And so we feel that it's important to make sure that parents understand that responsibility is important, punctuality is important, and that's also a part of what will be on a standards-based report card. But a student that maybe doesn't turn in several assignments, then gets zeros or 50% on them, and then eventually totally can show that they mastered everything, sometimes can't get better than a C-D grade because that beginning start just totally tore them down. And what we want is that we want to have our grades tied to what kids really learned and not tied necessarily to just responsibility factors. And I think for the middle school, and I will say it, primarily middle school boys, it's a huge issue. And so I'm really excited, and I think I've told people before, I went to that PLC conference the very first time, and I really want to thank the board and the district for allowing us to take such great number of staff there. Went to it and I was so excited about it. I think we all came home really excited about it. And now we've been implementing this now for 3 years, and to see what it's doing to our buildings is awesome. So basically, over the course of the last several years, we've been looking, I don't know why it's jiggling around so much, but we've been looking at ways to improve instructional practices and educational assessment by researching best practices. Education, we'd often talk about what's the best practice. So we've been collaborating and researching on how these best practices could be implemented to have a positive effect on student achievement. So for 3 years, well, the first year we went to administrative, and then for the last 2 years, from all 4 buildings, Solution Tree Professional Learning Community Conference in Minneapolis. And so a professional learning community is a team of teachers working on the common goal on teaching a group of similar aged kids. And we refer to that as a PLC. So when we say PLC, we're talking about a professional learning community. So the PLC conference is a national conference held in several regional centers that they rotate all summer and do and repeat. We're lucky that Minneapolis is always one that they come to, and they provide a framework that significantly has shown will improve student achievement if it's done with fidelity. So basically, just to review, in a PLC, your collaborative team focus on 4 questions for the same common group of kids that they serve. What do we expect students to learn? How do we know if they're learning it? How do we respond if they don't learn it? And how do we respond if they already know it? And so basically, that's really all it is, that you're taking a look at your curriculum and you're making sure that you can answer those 4 questions for your kids. So what's our vision? That we want students to show mastery of an essential standard and to ensure high levels of academic achievement and social and emotional development for all kids. So the essential standard. Our PLC goal then is to fully implement the PLC process district-wide. And ultimately to do that, the first thing we had to do was we wanted to know what students must know. And that's that essential standard. What the kids must know in every class. Then your essential standards, an important thing here is that the essential standard is not everything that's taught in the class. There's a lot of things that are taught in the class that are really good things to know, really valuable things to know, really good enrichment things, but they may not be an absolute essential standard. And so what we're saying is that, yeah, we're going to teach all the standards, we're going to teach all the different things, but we're going to really tie down to what kids absolutely must know, and those are essential standards that they can show that they've mastered the subject. Then once we've done that, the PLC team is going to implement quality common formative assessments to determine mastery of the essential standard. And then teams will intervene or reteach students who do not show mastery, and will have additional resources and advanced application materials for students who already have shown mastery. So that comes down to grading for learning. The grading for learning. We set a goal at the middle school that we will be fully implement a standards-based grading system by 21-22. So we are working on it this year and next year to fully implement it by the fall of 21-22. But there are things and changes that we made and have made, and most of my staff made it at the beginning of the year, and I required everyone to make it starting second semester. And that's one of the reasons I had the parent meetings, to explain to parents why what they're seeing on the report card may be a little different than what they've seen in the past. And I'll come back to that. So our action plan obviously was that staff had to know those essential standards and be able to communicate them clearly. They need to have a consistent grading system that's centered on mastery of those standards. They need to understand what mastery means. And trust me, when we sat down and drilled down to the standards, and or really helped the students, that it's not just understanding what the standard is, but then what does the standard actually asking you to do? And if you're and then how are you measuring it? And then ultimately designing those assessments to do that, and then implement interventions for kids that maybe need to reteach. So our focus for the last 2 years has been breaking those standards down into I-CAN statements. So we have the standard, but then what does it really asking the student to do, so in the language that they will understand? And then staff can communicate I statements to parents and students. So then you take a look at an assessment, oftentimes people say, well, what does a formative assessment mean? And a formative assessment is a way that it's like a ticket out of the door. It's a quiz, it's a game, or it's a test, or it's an activity. It might be a short quiz. And what you're going to do with it is you're going to get the data on it, and you're going to assess which students understood and which ones did not, so that you can adjust your instruction or to intervene for kids that need the extra instruction. It's not like an end-of-the-year all-encompassing assessment. It's a summative. So the changes that we're making right now for 2018-19 is that we wanted to put more weight on the mastery of essential standards instead of just all the daily homework assignments. And put it in essence is that oftentimes we sit down and the first time someone's seen something on a homework assignment, maybe the very first time they've had a chance to even try it, and maybe they struggle on it, why should that grade go in and then determine their mastery of an essential standard when they're trying it? It's like saying that you're going to shoot free throws in practice, and if you make 8 out of 10, or 6 out of 10, 4 out of 10 when you're practicing, but then you get it down, and by the time you're in a game, you're making 8 out of 10, they say you made 80%. They didn't penalize you for all your practice that you did. So we all staff semester, and our goal is to then consistently run it all through next year while we work on what that standards-based report card will look like in 21-22. One of the things about kids that maybe need an intervention, this slide got out of place, but one of the things we have to understand is that a good intervention isn't simply redoing what they did or reteaching it, because they didn't get it the first time you did it. So it's new teaching, it's different things, and it's different kids. It might mean that, for an example, my math teacher, my foundation teacher may say, I'm going to take all the kids first block that didn't get it, and I'm going to pull them into my room and reteach, and you're going to take the kids that did, and you're going to have an enrichment activity. There's lots of different ways that you can do this. So basically, if our curriculum is tied to essential standards, which it is district-wide, our assessments should be tied to those essential standards, then our grading system better be tied to the mastery of those standards, and then our report card should also be showing what they mastered then, instead of being tied to an old 60, 70, 80, 90% point scale. So we need to design a system that can communicate to parents what standards the child mastered and to what level they mastered that standard. So some of the changes in grading: all classes will be based student grades more on student mastery of an essential standard and less on homework practice. So classes then base their grades currently right now on 80% of the essential standard and 20% homework practice. I'm going to come back to that. So I know I had this, the first parent asked, what about a kid that doesn't do very well on tests? So I'll explain to you what we would do with that. So we're basically saying that the grade right now in the middle school is going to be based 80% on that essential standard, 20% on homework. And the rationale is that that's the bridge as we move towards the standards-based report card, grading kids on what they really learned and what they showed they learned. An assessment example could be a test, it could be a quiz, it could be an essay that they wrote, it could be a built, it might be a lab that they did. It's not just sit down and take the test. It's lots of different ways. It could be a speech. What it isn't is, okay, I'm giving this assignment, I want you to work on it and bring it in tomorrow, and we're going to take a look at how you did. It's not the daily practice work. It's an assessment of lots of different things. It could even be just a quick quiz that I'm giving to you solely to get a judgment call so I can know how I can intervene. The second big thing is that zeros will not be given. So we'll no longer give the student a 0 for not completing an assignment. I had teachers all over the place on this. Some would not. How was that for a parent? How effectively is that to understand? The rationale is that, students who don't complete an assignment get a 50% and it's marked as missing. So the parent will know in the grade book the assignment wasn't done. But the lowest we're going to give is 50%. I'll give you the rationale on that. I could have a student that doesn't do 2 assignments under the old system where we graded them quite evenly, didn't do 2 or 3 assignments, and they would get zeros on them. Then they could have 600 or 700 perfect assignments, and they couldn't even get above like a C- because those zeros just took everything down. It was totally a landmine to learning and showing what they learned. And then some kids would just be like, I'm not trying anymore because I'm already buried. won't let me make them up, which is another thing that we said, why wouldn't you make it up? You're learning from doing it, why won't we let you do it? So we're not giving zeros anymore. And so that's the significant impact. And I'll come back to, and be honest, on the homework, if we're only giving 20% weight on it anyway, it really doesn't have a huge factor on their grade. And then retaking an assessment. So a student has an additional opportunity to retake an assessment to improve their grade. Right now we're saying a student who scores below 70% on an assessment will be required to come in to do a reteach activity to develop to get additional help and additional instruction to retake the assessment. However, we're not saying that you have to be below 70. If I'm a student that really wants that A, or I really want that high grade, and I really wanted to push myself and show that I mastered things, and I got 78 or 82%, and I want to come to the reteach to improve, that's more power to them. So, but we're saying if you score below 70, we're bringing the kids in saying, no, you have to come to me for a reteach tomorrow during study hall, or I'm going to do it in class, whatever way the teacher is going to implement that. So ultimately, they may have 2 or 3 times to show mastery of that assessment. Maybe that first time they didn't do well, the second time you get a reteach and they were quite there, but not quite above 70, we're going to make them try again and get more help. And I'll be honest with you, I told someone, I have a lot of kids that are really, they clam up during a test. And so I'm like, well, okay, so you're giving them the assessment, but you're in there with them every day in class. You're watching what they're doing on their homework. You totally have a good idea that this student can show you they did it, and they show you they've learned it. You can give your assessment of that child's ability across the whole day. What did I see all day long? What did I see in their homework? What did I see in their group work? What did I see on this assessment? And you're coming forward and saying, ultimately, in the long run, I'm going to be making a determination of how much a mastery I felt that kid met. So there's a lot of, and maybe then they need to take the test or an assessment where they come in with just the teacher and you talk about it and they give you verbal answers because that will help them. A lot of different ways that we can eventually reteach and reassess students. So an old grading philosophy would say, well, you're in English, you get an A-. But what does that mean? Because the biggest thing I have is the parents will say they see a standards-based report card and they'll be, well, what does that mean? Is it an A? No, because we're going away from that at the middle school. So we're saying right now a traditional grade would be A-, but what does that mean? What does that mean? It's English. Could be lots of different things. An A- in what? So what we're saying is that eventually, when we fully get to a standards-based report card, is that we will have every standard listed on the report card that was measured during that grading period. I've already talked to Power School, and we don't have to have them all listed that are all the standards, the essential standards for the whole year. They can pull just the ones that are going to be measured during this grading period. So maybe there was 4 in reading that they evaluated. Maybe one was on being able to read and comprehend a range of text. Maybe another one was on productive, effective writing for a range of purposes, being able to speak and listen effectively, or demonstrating proper language. And so then we would say whether you're a proficient, advanced on that, or maybe minimal on that, or developing and needing help, whatever we decide those language goals or the proficiency levels, how they'll be rated. And then ultimately, for each standard, what our staff is going to be doing is they're going to be coming up with a rubric to show on this now, what does advanced, proficient, developing, or being, what does that mean for that standard? So that might be something that would be on a report card. There's a link below, and you can click it and we'll go to the database, and you can see, okay, for English, what does that standard, what does basic on this standard mean, or developing mean? And so then they would be able to take a look at it and get an idea based off of each standard that's on that report card. So we would be moving away from A, B, C, D in a year and a half. And we would have the standards that were essential, the essential standards listed in parent language, and then we would have an evaluation of how well they did. So kind of what I showed you was what we're doing in the next year and a half to move away from a traditional grade into more like a standards-based grade, but still giving A's and B's and C's, and then a year and a half from now we'll be totally here when we're ready and have all the training and things that are set up to make it effective, and to make sure parents understand why we're doing what we're doing. Although only 2 parents came to the meeting tonight, so I have more. I don't know how to get them there, but it'd definitely be a big part of 6th grade orientation as well. So we're fully committed to the PLC process. So when I say that, standards-based grading, like even, I'll give you an example. The high schools, most high schools aren't on a standards-based grading. And the reason they're not is that the colleges still require that GPA and the A's and all of that in the classroom. All of that's required. But that doesn't mean that the high schools don't go through the PLC process. Because you can go through the PLC process and have all those standards aligned and do the reteaching and all the assessments off of those essential standards and assign a grade, just like you can any class. But what we're saying is that we're all doing that, but at the middle school, we're going to move more towards a standards-based report card. The other thing is that we've adjusted our grading policy to get there, but this isn't really new. Lean Elementary is on a standards-based report card right now. AIM at the intermediate is on a standards-based report card. The intermediate school is also looking at moving towards a standards-based report card just like we are. And the middle school will definitely be progressing and be on one by 21-22.
Structure, and obviously grading. When you've been working on this for what, 3 years, 2 or 3 years?
Well, we went 3 years ago as an administrative team, and we came back really excited about it. And we started talking about it with staff and showing them a little bit about where we're going. And we started moving towards saying we need to start identifying what is the essential standard in your class. And that was an effort of all the administrative team. And I do know that they started doing the work, but they didn't quite understand all of it until we started bringing teachers. We brought like 20-some teachers to the PLC conference 2 years ago. And it was amazing because they were so motivated. And they said, this is the best conference I've ever been to. It's amazing. And then we sat in team meetings and they're like, this is what we need to do. This is what the staff doesn't quite understand. We need to do this. This is the next training we should have. And we just kind of like said, great. And we just kind of like stepped back and just let them go. And then when we went into teams and started to really get into the next step of the process, we had all other kinds of leaders to help move it forward. We also used Chris Stratton and did a lot of training on taking that essential standard and then breaking the language down. Because once you understand, yeah, this is what we want kids, this is what we say is essential, but then what is it really asking them to do, then you better have an assessment that measures that effectively. That's harder to write than you think. Like when you write a state test, they're investing millions of dollars into developing questions, because sometimes you could write and look at what a standard is and then write a quiz question for it, and you didn't even measure what it was asking you to do. It's harder to do than you think. And so the staff is working on that. And then breaking down data, and they usually look at the teams. They get their data down. I'm sure like at the elementary school, maybe all second grade has to give that standard at the same time. They have to pace their guide out so that they're all getting there about the same time. And then they get their data as a team, and then they get down there and look at the kids that are doing well, look at the kids that could go to an enrichment activity, look at the kids that need an intervention. How are we going to do it effectively? Well, they can't do it alone. They can't stand alone. You can't teach in your room anymore by yourself. And so then second grade teachers would say, I'm going to take these kids to do a reteach during this time. The ones that I have and the ones that you have, and you take these and do this, and you can do all kinds of really cool and amazing things. So it also then gives those kids that totally understood it, they don't have to sit in the room while you reteach it to the whole class again and go, oh my gosh, I already got this. They can go do something different while we're reteaching in a different location. But to do that, you have to be a PLC team. You have to work together.
I guess that answered my question on how you're, teaching this to the staff, because I would think that educators would be a little bit resistant because they would feel like you're telling them how to do their job. But I guess if they're educated and everything's explained and they're excited about it, then that's great.
Yeah, I would say at the middle school, and I still think I have a few that are unsure about it. They're unsure about it, but for the most part, I think we're doing some really great things and have great leadership. And we've spent, and one of the reasons is that we did it slowly. We worked and we've done little chunks at a time and made sure they were involved. I don't know, do you want to touch base on any of you about how it's going in your building with the...
You've done a really good job. It's a long process, and I agree with Mr. Benson. We've done it little by little, and we've had staff buy into it, and you have invested in sending us to the PLC conference. In all, we probably have 50 staff members that have attended, and this year we're looking at sending 20 more. We try to send equal parts from each building so that everybody's represented. It's a 2.5-day conference, and it's been, like he said, probably one of the best, and it's not an initiative, it's a way of doing business.
You're right.
And it's probably one of the best ways of doing business that we have found. And I think if you ask teachers, they would agree with that.
Cheryl, that's been done in your building for years and years. I mean, you've given the proficient, the advanced, the minimal criteria for years.
Right.
How does that differ, and how do we not see that the middle school and the intermediate school going to that kind of system is not a regression? I understand the structure is maybe a little different, but how is that not a regression back to what we've already been done in the elementary school for years and years?
Well, it hasn't been years and years, actually, where we've had a standards-based report card. And as Mr. Benson said, we had to identify the essential standards, and that took time in doing that because, we would have our first grade teachers, our team, look at reading, and they would come out with 18 standards that all kids needed to learn. And really, we were taught that you need to limit that to what are the essentials, because the whole idea is that all kids learn those standards. And Mr. Benson referred to it in his little presentation that there's many, many things taught, but the essential standards are what we want all kids to know.
And do those essential standards line up with the DPI standards?
The standards, the essential standards are off of. We take the Common Core state standards, the standards that we've adopted, and then those DPI standards, we take them, and that's what they built it off of. They looked at those standards and drilled down to which ones they felt were essential. But if you look at those standards, they're written. They're not written in effectively communicated ways. They're really detailed, and you start talking about the conventions of speech, and parents are going to be like, well, what does that mean? And so we took the standard. So on our forms, it says, here is the standard. The standard is there, so you can show what standard you're talking about. But then we put it in a I can statement, which means, like for a student, I can read a passage and write a paper to communicate persuasively or something like that. So then it's written out in a language that we can tell the kids this is what you're doing instead of the formal effect. And now we're taking it saying, okay, but for the report card, how do we word it on a report card? So that's even like a different way. That's what we spent this morning's in-service on, was taking those essential standards and saying, what would the report card language look like? To give you an idea, we spent an entire year just looking at essentials and identifying essential standards, and then like another half year talking about what does the standard really asking them to do, and starting to take a look at how would you assess it and writing assessments. And right now we're sort of in the year of trying these assessments for the first time and responding to them. We have a lot of work yet to do this right. Because once we even get down to really which kids learned and which ones didn't, even at the middle school, we're saying we need to make better scheduling adjustments. We need to make more fluid times to be able to respond in interventions that make it more sense and make it easier to do it. So there's a lot of different things that we have to continue to work on, and I'm sure those problems I'm seeing, the problems that high school's seeing and everyone else. But the cool part about it is that this is common language and common expectations district-wide. We're all doing this.
And then, so since you were bringing up assessments, so when a child demonstrates that they don't get that standard, that they have not met that standard, and that they have to reassess, are there other options given then? Let's say it was a test first, and they didn't demonstrate that way through an assessment. Is there another assessment that is possible that they could demonstrate it in a different way?
Yeah. Traditional test. Then she has taken the results, and they go into their PLC time, and that's their time where all the sixth grade then is in a PLC, and they're sitting down and going over the data for their kids, and they have to do that once a week or once every 2 weeks. Which kids are struggling off of your common assessments? And then she said, okay, I have these kids that I need to do a reteach, so I'm going to need to take them this time, so you take the other kids at this time. And then she came up with a reteach activity, and then she had a much simpler assessment that only measured on the ones that they didn't understand instead of the whole assessment. She did something she set up a Math Excel program and just had those problems. And once they showed mastery on the Math Excel, it showed that they did it. And then I think there was a third one where then she had to bring them down, and there was like 3 kids, and you sat down with 3 kids, and you made sure they got it, and you walked them through it. And I think then that assessment might just be a discussion, and the students repeating and showing you, so that you can say, okay, without my son, you showed that you understood it to at least a proficient level. And ultimately, the goal is that, you look at schools that you get a D minus, and you move on because you passed the class. And the kid probably didn't learn a lot, and then they graduate and they're reading in a third. That's not acceptable. So we're saying every kid needs to know these essential standards, and to move forward, we need to make sure that they do. Our job isn't to just provide them information and to determine how much they got. It's to teach them. So then we need to say, if you didn't get it, I have to find a different way to make sure you understood it.
And I think that, in theory, that's a great thing. But so then when we're talking about kids who turn work in versus kids who don't turn work in, and trust me, I've had lots of middle school kids, and I get it. I've been there with all of them. They didn't turn it in. I have one myself who, learned a lot, can test well, but he just can't get his crap together to turn it in. I get that. But then where's the incentive if we're going to give 50% for turning in nothing, which personally I have a huge problem with, then where is that incentive then for everybody else to not be like, well, I don't have to turn it in either?
Well, they're not going to let them off from not doing it. It's just saying that it's not going to nosedive their grade. So they're saying, okay, I'm going to put a 50% down. It's missing. But like for our building, they still have academic intervention. So if you're not doing it, the teacher then pulls and says, I have these kids that aren't doing their homework. I need them to come in. And so in our program, they do 2 weeks with the teacher during study hall, and then then they have to come after school to show the work until they get the work done. So the teachers are still going to be working with the kids and making sure that that they do the work as best they can. It's just that they aren't going to let that totally bomb their grade. And also, when you're ultimately coming down though and saying, when we're getting away from an ABC, they're really looking at what did they really learn. And so we have also on the report card is a behavioral grade. And I think every standards-based report card I've seen, not only does it say proficient on this standard and this standard or this standard, but then there's also responsibility in terms of working on time, and there's a grade for that. And there's maybe a grade on is respectful and cooperative with his peers and conducts himself in a safe manner. So those grades would also be on the report card.
Because that would be a huge concern when we have middle schoolers coming up to a high school program then who have to have that responsibility of turning work in.
Well, we do. But we have pieces of what Tom's talking about here at the high school. We haven't adopted a standards-based grade for obvious reasons of grade point average and class rank and transcripted credit and college acceptance and the rest. But we did one small change last year that was instrumental in changing the number of kids that failed. We didn't allow kids to get a grade of anything other than incomplete if they had a 0. And they had to turn it in.
Yeah.
And our rates of failure went from in the 150 to 200 range to about 25 every term. Because kids felt compelled that they had to do it. And the kids that truly got an F in the end was very, very rare.
I think I have less kids not turning the homework in now because the staff is still on top of them saying you need to do this. But then when they get to the assessment, then they didn't understand it because they didn't do the homework prior to. Now I have to come in and do a whole nother reteach and go through all the instruction while they're doing all that cool stuff down in Makerspace, and I'm having to get this. And now you're reteaching me, and now I have to take this assessment again. It was a heck of a lot easier to pay attention and turn my work in and do well on the assessment the first time. So
I've always marveled at the Algebra 1 kid that turns into a mathematician to realize that now they're numerically eliminated from passing the class. They figured it out mathematically. I always marvel at that. If you could use those skills to turn the stuff in, you probably would be mathematically capable of passing the class.
I've had several like that.
But what you brought up is a very big concern. It's probably the biggest one that you hear about it. And that was asked of me again tonight with one of the 2 parents. Hopefully for more on Thursday, 5:30.
So, and then I guess the other question that I had was, so when you're talking about a professional learning community, which seems to be natural and easier for second grade teachers, a group of fourth grade teachers, a group of English teachers, a group of math teachers, how does that affect then our, our business ed teachers, our vocational ed teachers? Are they then a group, but they don't really have that luxury of saying, these are our fourth grade reading standards, but now they're all individual programs. So where is that? How do they fit into that?
Well, there's like at the conference they talk about singletons, and they may be the only one teaching that class. Like Al Carlson's the only one teaching tech ed, 7th grade, so he's the only one with those kids. But he still then has to at least come up with what is the standard or the essential standard for my class, and if they didn't show mastery, he's going to have to try and find them and pull them in still. He just doesn't have the effectiveness of...
But he doesn't have that support system then, or our business ed teachers, they don't have that support system of, you can take these kids while I go with these kids to do something else.
Oh, not necessarily. Well, but you have to understand, too, at the middle school, I have one, one social studies teacher at 6th grade, one science. So they're working together with other teachers, even though they're the only one teaching that class. If Al Carlson said, I want to do a reteach during study hall time, or during a different time, he'd have to maybe work with people saying, how could I make that effectively? It might be oftentimes is that he just pulls the kids back in because he doesn't. They're out somewhere else now. He doesn't have to worry about them. He can pull them in to come down to him.
So here's what we did at the high school with CTE, which is business, ag, FACE, and tech ed. Those teachers all are obligated to teach a class called careers. It's required for a kid to graduate. And all 4 of those teachers sat down in the same room and revised that entire curriculum. Our kids, via survey, the last 2 times said this class is not what we want it to be. Some kids were more honest than that and said this is a waste of my time. So what we did is we revamped that curriculum and made it entirely experiential based, as in they're going to do hands-on activities. Every single term, 9-week term, they do 5 business visits, and they have to do work based on those 5 business visits. And they can take it in the area they want. They can take it in ag if they like ag. They can take it in business if they like that, FACE and tech ed. And we revised the entire curriculum. And those 4 teachers during the school day sat in PLC and revised that curriculum, set with rubrics, assessments, evaluations. Now it's going to be one of the best classes in the building. That's the benefit of a PLC, a collaborative effort on a finished product.
The other thing they can do is take a reading standard or a writing standard, because you have to read and write in all of those classes, and they could work collaboratively on a formative assessment with using those types of standards too.
And we think that this will translate well to the Wisconsin assessments or the other assessments that they take, all the big tests that they take. Have we seen anything that correlates those at all yet?
You're never going to correlate them with the ACT because they're not in any way connected to any set of standards per se.
All of the grades.
But the forward exam is connected to Wisconsin's Common Core.
A lot of it will be is, did they do a nice job determining the right essential standards and did it in a similar way that the test did. Now, Orly and I were at the district assessment coordinators meeting. We went together to take a look at it. What day was it? Friday. And they just came out, they said, here's a new document that you can take a look that specifically shows which standards tend to be heavier influenced on the test. And I'm like, well, it would have really been nice to have that 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But we certainly are going to want to break into that now and say, okay, this is what they say is the standards that are really heavily based on the state test. Are these standards reflective in what we determined to be essential? I'm guessing they would be. I think they did a really nice job on it, but we'll have to see. But yeah. But they're tied to the same standards that we are. So hopefully it would, if it's done effectively, and it has shown that it will make big differences in growth in other schools that have done it effectively. But there's a lot of schools that say they're a PLC that really aren't, because they're like they call it PLC light. They're sort of doing it, and so they're saying you have to really try your best with the resources and staff that you have to try and effectively really do it. And we're so new in it, it's going to be hard to tell.
Now, this is an informational item, so the dozen people in the room plus the large crowd of 2 that Tom had earlier today makes you 14 have received this information. You don't have to act on this tonight. Tom will be back when we get closer. We're looking at 2021, so we got some time yet here. And I'm sure there are hundreds that are waiting to sign up for Tom's presentation on Thursday. And we'll see what happens there. But if there are further questions, I just wanted you to know this is something you don't have to act on it tonight. It's not something we're doing
I'm
tonight.
done. I've
Do you
done
have
with
the
my
audit-
80 questions that I.
You can ask questions.
Do you
That's
have
what
the
we're here for.
auditorium reserved?
Yeah, I know, yeah, exactly. We'll have to see. I do know that I don't anticipate I'll get a huge crowd, but I do know then this is going to be a very big component of where, what we do in sixth grade orientation. But then again, like I said, it's been a standards-based report card of the elementary all along. Orleans, I would say a huge percentage of Orleans, or not a huge, a small percentage of AIM are doing it. She'll be doing it. It will probably be moot again in about 4 or 5 years when they've already have seen it, and that's all they know.
It's best practice.
Yeah.
This is absolutely best practice.
That took a little longer than I anticipated. I'm sorry, we hit 8 o'clock. And I told them I'll be back for the end of conferences. Now they're going to think that I purposely waited till 8 o'clock to.
Tell them. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is the first reading of the closed session policy.
We missed Montessori there. I'll take
Oh.
that one quick. Montessori, very quick message on Montessori. Where we talked last month about the expansion of the Montessori model to 4th grade. Remember, there are those planes of development. The next plane beyond that 1st through 3rd is the 4th through 6th. So that inherently involves leaving elementary. Now we're talking intermediate and middle. We do not want to make a hasty decision about what that looks like. So we are going to go and see who does it best and see if that's something that we want to replicate here. But we can't do that in 3 weeks' time from last meeting to this meeting and do it with the justice that it deserves. So we're going to see who does it best, and we're going to come back to you with our recommendation in the fall. For those who are interested in an answer, I know there are folks that are percolating on whether the answer is going to be a yes or a no on 4th grade. You don't need to do anything with that tonight. They'll simply have to wait. It isn't happening. 4th grade Montessori isn't happening next year, so we have a little bit of time. So hold that thought, basically, is where we're at on that one. If you have questions on Montessori, you certainly can ask, but we're sort of in a holding pattern on that right now.
I appreciate that you're taking the time to look more into it and to really research it a little bit more and to consider how it can be best implemented in this school district if that's the direction we want to take. But
I think our motto as an administrative team is always when we don't want to just do it, we want to do it right. So let's do it right.
Okay. So now we are on to the first reading of the closed session policy.
The closed session policy, original policy is 174 closed sessions. It was approved in February of 1995, which was a while ago, obviously. The closed session policy, in essence, there's one key sentence in here. It makes reference to that you're going to follow state statute. So what we have done with this new version of the closed session policy, and you'll see on the screen, number 2 in all of the letters that are after that, that is state statute, not that number 1 and number 3 aren't. But the reasons that you can convene in closed session are now spelled out rather than just referenced in state statute. It isn't in any way to hide anything. It's actually to do just the opposite, but to be entirely transparent. What you have to do with closed session, you have to take a vote to go to closed session. You have to record what that vote is. Each and every board member have to weigh in on that. You have to state why you're going into closed session, and when you're in closed session, you have to do what you said you were going to do, which is largely personnel and legal matters. And then in that closed session meeting, you don't have to do a broad narrative of every single word that's spoken. What you need to do is you need to list what the action items that you're going to take and how people weighed in vote-wise on each of those items. And if there aren't any actions taken, you simply list what was discussed. Because sometimes a closed session board meeting will occur and nothing was decided upon in regards to a vote. In regards to the closed session meetings, if you look at number 5, you need to include the following: who's present, what the presiding officers announced in the closed session, in essence, what was the statement you made to go into closed session. Convene and vote on the individual board members vote on each motion, record any action that was taken, and again, if no action was taken, simply record the topics. The last item is, where are closed session meeting minutes held? All closed session meeting minutes, after they're compiled and made official by Becky, in essence, typing them up, they're housed in the district office vault. They can be accessed by a Wisconsin Public Records request, gone through proper channels on that. I'm the custodian of records, and I would simply respectfully reply to that open records request and supply whatever needed to be supplied. And that's following state statute. Pretty much 95% of this policy is what the statute says word for word. So that's our updated version of closed session policy. I'm not sure if the board wanted to chime in on any of that. I know it's an exciting topic.
It's just statutory.
For the closed session meeting minutes, it kind of just jumps into that they're stored in the district office. Is there a way that we can put in this policy who is responsible then to type those up?
Sure.
I mean, not obviously naming Becky, she's the person at this time, but it would usually be the district administrative assistant, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
I'd like to see that in this draft. And then also, do we have in the district administrator's absence for a custodian of records who that second person is?
We haven't, but we certainly can decide upon somebody.
It's actually
Oh,
it's okay. That's what I thought. All right.
I didn't know.
Okay, and then, so I guess I would like to include that in
Okay.
that draft as well, then, is in the absence of a district administrator, who that next person would be. I think we had to do some searching to figure that out the last time.
Now we know.
And then I would like to ask, normally we've been submitting minutes by hand. Of course, then, via email, they become open records, but they are open records, subject to open records requests anyway.
They are.
So emailing would not be a problem.
Not at all.
Okay. So I'd like to have that put in there
Sure.
too, how they're handled from taker to the
Yes.
person who would be formally typing them up.
In this entire policy is WASB, Wisconsin Association of School Boards, guided. They sent us 3 guiding documents, and that is how this policy was drafted right from their language.
Right. And so I
from
just
their-
kind of wanted to customize it to our
Of course.
district.
Makes sense.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we'll have another, first reading next month with those changes. Does anyone else have any changes or additions or comments? Nope. All right. All right, now we're on to the action items. Last day of school.
I'm hesitant to speak, but I will do my best. If you follow the document up on the screen, and hopefully Becky will not open this up at any point in time and type it anything further. The last day of school was scheduled by calendar for to be the 5th of June. We've had built in 2 late starts and 2 snow days. We have had not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 of those events. I don't know what will happen. I won't even talk about it this week, but there it is. So we are in the position to have to make up 3 days. So if you scan down, you'll see your options. We can just add 3 days to the end of the calendar, and you finish on Monday, the 10th of June. You could do option 2, which is to add 5 minutes of instruction to the school day in each building. Please know the reason it states each building. Middle school and high school need more hours of instruction than elementary and intermediate. But if you add 5 minutes to the high school time specifically, then you have a really big problem with traffic patterns out front, because high school kids are spilling out into their vehicles into bus traffic, and then everything is thrown off, and that's not good. So everyone would add 5 minutes, and everyone's created a schedule where we would finish at 5 minutes later than we presently do. And if we do that, theoretically, we should be good to go. We shouldn't have cars and buses running into traffic and so forth after that. Or you could change Thursday, April 18th from an in-service day to a school day. Please know that that's not unprecedented. I was up at CISA last week, and pretty much every district in the room, everyone was there, said we're doing that. Some districts said we have exchanged all of our in-service days in, because some at that point had already had 7 or 8 inclement weather days. Or you can do both, and you could add 2 days back into the calendar and get us back to Thursday the 6th. We're still down 1, if you will. But that would at least perhaps save the chance if we had another weather event of finishing on Friday as opposed to Monday. I know that I could speak for the educators in the room that Monday, June 10th does not sound exciting to me, but I'm sure it sounds even less exciting to the students, minus the seniors, of course, because they're cheering for everyone they can get their hands on, because they're not making any of them up.
They don't care, because
They've been bribing me left and right, and I have not taken any of their bribes thus far. So
if we do, let's say we go through option 2, 3, or 4, where we would add, where we would be able to, I guess not, would summer school still start on Monday, the 10th?
That's the next item on the
Okay.
agenda. Technically, summer school is scheduled right now for Monday, June 10th. Right now, our last day of school is Monday, June 10th. We have tentatively pushed the start of summer school to the 12th, which is Wednesday, but there is a financial impact on that we're going to talk about here in a minute. with that
What would be
summer
the
school.
financial
Well, the summer
impact of
school
that?
instructional minutes are all weighed into our financial formula, and Andy can talk to what the loss would be there if we dropped 2 days of summer school, which is what you would do if you moved it to the 12th.
Sure, yeah. As you may be aware, we get about 40% of a regular FTE for summer school. And based on last year's numbers, the number of students we had in summer school, the impact would be about $3,500 per day, or $7,000 for 2 days, obviously. So that really is the impact you're looking at. Obviously, if there was an increase in FTE, which we have been year to year, it seems like it would be more than that. But right around that is about the good number to, ballpark number to look at, so financial impact.
Is if we took action on this and said we're going to do one of these things, and God forbid we had more days, can we come back and revise and revisit this and add it again?
You can. You wouldn't be able to go back and revise on the adding of minutes. That would start on March 4th, and if you waited further before you started adding minutes, you just wouldn't gather enough
Right.
minutes. But if we had more snow events, we could look at other items in the calendar. But the only in-service day to add into and make a school day is Thursday, April 18th. The only other recourse you would have would be to go with this Friday, which seems like awfully short notice, to let anyone know, or spring break day. You wanted people to show up at board meetings. That would be a problem.
If we just did minutes though tonight, if we just did minutes tonight, that would still leave us a day to play with.
That would
We
put you
could come
back on Friday, June 7th.
And if we needed to do it, we could come back and say, well, then we'll have school April 18th.
My recommendation would be to do both and get us to Thursday, so we have Friday in case we have a snow event. And it's what pretty much every district in the area is doing, and it's one of our only days we got left. Go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to know, would it be possible if we took away the in-service day on the 18th to have that in-service day then be on the Friday?
Friday.
If Thursday was the last day of school, then Friday would be
yes.
staff in-service to come in. There's a lot of things that I would like to do to at least clean
We'd
up
have to
some
look
things.
at that as an administrative team, but that's
Yeah.
certainly an option. I know you've thrown that out there. But from a student context standpoint, we're looking at putting a couple back in the bank, because heading into June is going to be real tough.
Yeah, I
It would
think-
seem like option 4 would be the best option.
Exactly, that way we have another day just in
Because
case.
it's very possible with the weather.
We got
way it's
6 to
been
8
to
weeks
have.
left.
Wednesday, just
Yeah,
even,
maybe
yeah.
Wednesday.
And we look at.
Is it possible to add 10 minutes? I mean, I don't.
We could.
I mean, I don't. You know, I mean, in one hand, I hate to do that, but on the other hand, if we're going to add 5, what's the difference between 5 and 10? You know what I
Well,
mean?
there would be 2 drawbacks on that. One, you talk about kids getting home later on the
Yes.
bus, because some kids are getting home pretty late already. Then you're talking about a sports impact, because kids start practice typically at 3:30, and at the high school, we wouldn't be done until 3:22. We wouldn't be starting practice at 3:30. That might be hard. And you can't add it at the beginning of the day, because our certified staff handbook has explicitly stated in there as the 8 o'clock is your start time.
Well, I heard what you said about DPI, and I understand that.
They're not giving waivers at the DPI.
I did say that
It's been asked.
Under Wisconsin statute 118.38, we could request a waiver from DPI after a public hearing is held, but it also says that DPI does not, in black, bold, capitalized print, and anticipate approving waivers for hours and minutes due to this week's weather. But, that's this week. I mean, if there's another 2 or 3
Maybe.
days, I say we definitely request a waiver.
Okay.
If we miss a couple more days of school, but
We're
in
not going
any
to
event.
be alone.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
we go, most everyone else is going to go.
I think we need to, my opinion would go with number 4, because that way we at least have another day.
Yep.
I think
Just
so,
in
too.
case, I mean,
So I make a motion that we add 5 minutes of instruction to the end of the day and change April 18th from an in-service day to a school day, and option 4 as requested, or as.
I'll second that motion.
And pray. That's where we're at this point.
Snow days are awesome, but we don't need this many
Correct.
in a year.
We don't need another Wednesday and Friday off this week.
Yeah.
All right, is all in favor for option number 4? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll approve option number 4, adding 5 minutes of instruction to the end of the day and change April 18th from an in-service day to a school day.
The question of summer school is the next item up there. Would you like us to move summer school to the 12th or keep it on the 10th? If there are no other days we have, 10th is a really quick turnaround. Is it doable? It is, but it would be hard. I would have to work with Laura on that. We've already positioned summer school for next year. We know that calendar. You just approved it last month for a week later. So we would have to have a whole lot of snow days to run into that one. It's 1 week off and then starting based on the way that calendar is constructed.
Now, why did this start so early this year?
The summer school?
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in the conversation of when that date was chosen. That
Okay.
was prior to me. I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, I mean, it is a financial impact, not a huge one, but how many kids are going to show up on that Monday?
If they just, I think a lot of kids, honestly.
Really? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with keeping it on Monday for now. I mean,
I think it's
just regardless.
I think it's just staff
hard
that would be more.
to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It'll be a quick turnaround. The issue is the formality. If we have more days added and we don't get a waiver, then we're going to have to push it.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
reality.
Well, we'll just cross our fingers, I guess.
So leave it on the 10th?
I'd
think
make a
so.
motion,
so.
yeah, I'll
I think
move to leave summer school on the 10th, the start of summer school on June 10th.
Okay. And registration for summer school, just for those folks who are keeping track of such things, is the beginning of the window was March 25th and the end of the window was April 19th. So that catalog is complete and will be in the hands of folks here real soon. You'll see it up here. All 34 pages of work. This is a collaborative effort and really threefold. You're looking at Laura Sjogren, Tracy Hendrickson has her hands in this, and Becky does as well. So this is for a school of our size, we're doing a lot of stuff for a lot of kids. And remember, one of the big tickets here is there aren't any fees involved, and that is very rare.
Do we?
Okay, back to summer
Go ahead.
school starting.
Well, is that right? The question I would have is, do you know when we would start the 5 minutes?
March 4th.
March 4th.
Oh, March 4th, I missed
Yeah,
that.
March 4th. And we'll notify everyone that that's occurring,
Okay.
family folders and such, all that stuff.
I'll second Char's motion.
Okay, all in favor of keeping summer school starting at June 10th?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, summer school will remain as is for now. All right, personnel action is the last.
As set forth.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the changes set forth in the personnel listed listed on the screen are approved.
We should make a comment about Paulette. I mean, how many years has she been here? 30?
In Paulette tonight was not able to be with us
Yeah.
for
But-
extenuating circumstances. It's 30 plus, I know that.
35, I think, comes to mind, something like that.
Every time I bring it up and talk to her, she gets a bigger and bigger smile on her face about traveling. She keeps talking about Florida, and I'm envious of all of that. But she keeps talking about it, and I'll tell you what, I couldn't be happier for her.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yep, she's done a great
Well
job.
earned, well earned.
Absolutely.
Well earned retirement. Thanks to
How long
Paulette
has-
for all the years.
And how long has Wendy been here?
Do you guys know? I don't know right offhand.
Yeah.
Several years.
All right.
She might not want us to
It's
disclose
30,
how many
it's
years.
30 plus,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. In the district?
And she's worked in many buildings and been a true student advocate. And she's a very
much.
specialized position. That will be a very difficult one to fill.
Yes.
Well,
thank you to both of those women for all their years of service. Okay, so now we'll take a motion to go into closed session to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in order to take personnel action pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, or to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851G.
I move to go into closed session for the above state statutes.
Is there a second? Dale?
Second.
All right, roll call. Aaron?
Yes.
Shar?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Yes. All right, we're now into closed session.